Welcome to Insiders by Durham Lane, an industry podcast that connects the worlds of sales and marketing one guest at a time. I'm your host, Richard Lane, co-founder and chief commercial officer of Durham Lane. And today I'm thrilled that we've got Jessica Cook in the hot seat. Jess is head of marketing at Vector. I say the hot seat, it'll be a really nice conversation, Jess, so don't you worry about that. Firstly, really great to have you on the show. Thanks for being with us. And perhaps to get started, before we sort of dive into brand, marketing, search, etc., why don't you just tell the listeners a little bit about yourself and about Vector?
Absolutely. And thank you for having me, Richard. Excited to be here. My name's Jess Cook. I'm head of marketing at Vector. Vector is a tool that lets you build ad audiences of people who are kind of already in your atmosphere, the people coming to your website, the people clicking your ads but not converting, the people researching your competitors and relevant topics. We de-anonymize them all and let you build ad audiences and push them directly to the ad platforms that you're already using. So really interesting technology. And this is my first head of marketing role. So I've spent the last 6-7 years as content marketer and kind of building content departments and programs at a handful of different SaaS companies. And before that, I was a copywriter and a creative director in B2C. So made kind of a pivot, mid-career pivot, and I'm absolutely in the right place. I made the right decision.
Unbelievable. Fantastic. Well, good for you, because a pivot in every walk of life is a cool thing, especially when it delivers value for you. So congrats on that. I think, content's probably quite a good place to start, right? Because what you mentioned in terms of where Vector plays, it sounds like you're part of the trendy intent and signal set. So, I love the way that signals has become the new buzzword. How does and what's your view of content in the mix of marketing?
It's a great question. And I think there is no marketing without content. I'm not really sure what you put behind, what you would build a campaign around or any kind of point of view or differentiation if you don't have a piece of content to explain what that is. So that's not a new take. That's just, I think marketing is content marketing. In fact, I think you're going to start to see more and more, like me, heads of marketing come from a content background. It used to be that heads of marketing, CMOs, only came from demand gen or product marketing because they were, they're very foundational in terms of the narrative that you tell, or, their demand gen marketers are very close to pipeline, right? And so those kind of two paths usually make it to that kind of head of marketing role faster. But recently, I don't know if you've seen the headlines, I think it was a Wall Street Journal article or maybe New York Times that just posted an article about companies are now looking for storytellers. Like, that is the hot new job title. And so I think that's a trend that is due in part to all of this kind of AI and where'd the traffic go and how do we attribute anything anymore when we don't know where people are coming from. We do that with brand and with storytelling. And so I think you're going to start to see more heads of marketing come from a content storytelling background.
So you're leading the trend.
I'm trying. There have been others, thankfully.
Yeah, absolutely. So, that's really, and I think on this podcast, we always talk about the link between sales and marketing, and storytelling I've always felt where it's at. It felt like such an easy part of the job to me, just to say, well, thought you'd be interested because we've done something similar with someone else a bit like you. And, guess what? It always captures attention. So I'm not surprised that the storytelling aspect, I'm not surprised, and I'm really pleased the storytelling aspect is coming to the fore. How does that weave into brand, or what's your experience in terms of and it'd be good actually maybe to think of some great examples and some less good examples of how that storytelling and brand sort of has all come together to work positively.
Yeah. So I started at Vector in February, and we spent the majority of this year just building awareness through brand. Like, how are we going to get people to know who we are? Like you said, kind of this signaled space is really crowded. A lot of them are like sales tools. So I think that was one thing we had going for us was we are directly built for marketers to build ad audiences from these signals, and from de-anonymization and kind of this idea of contact level, like who by name is interested in what you're doing and the problems you solve. So that was really where we started, was like, how can we build awareness through really interesting brand plays? We started a podcast called This Meeting Could Have Been a Podcast. It's now
Okay.
in its second season. And we didn't want to do, kind of the typical thing. We wanted it to be recorded on set. Every episode is myself and my CEO, and that was a conscious decision. There is a lot built into that relationship at every company, every kind of marketing leader, CEO relationship. How do you navigate that? And we knew that, and we knew marketing to marketers, that would be something people would be interested in. And so every episode is essentially like our one-on-one. So this
Yeah.
latest episode that actually just came out today is called Josh Wants to Start an Influencer Program. Last week's was Jess wants to sponsor an event, right? And so each episode is kind of a thing we have to come to a decision to together. And so that's been a huge boon for us, just people getting to know who we are as people, and then vector by way of who we are, right? So that's been a huge play for us. We have a mascot. Our mascot is highly beloved. It's this little ghost here behind me. We just affectionately call him Ghosty. But he's kind of a nice shorthand for what the product does, reveal who is
Yeah.
interested in your space, right? No longer anonymous clicks, and now you have a name attached to that engagement. So that has been a really, really fun kind of way for us to go out and get people to understand what we do, but also stop the scroll in our ads, in our videos, on our website, right? Like get people interested in, oh, these folks are different. Like they're doing something a little bit different. Let's see what else. Our swag, like even our swag people talk about. We have some really interesting pieces. Like we designed, if you've ever heard of the game Cards Against Humanity. So
Yes.
we designed our own version of that called Marketers Against Humanity.
Right.
We have a very specific like strategy around our swag. So that game was part of like, okay, we need one piece that can be really shareable, right? Like people will play it with other marketers. Maybe they'll take a picture of it, they'll post it, and we have seen that, people
Okay.
get
Yeah.
that game, they'll play it with others, and they'll
Yeah.
talk about it on social media. Then the next step up is kind of this idea of a lot of, I think it's like 60 or 70% of marketers are women. And whenever they go to these conferences, it's like they're always looking for something to bring home to their kids, right? And so that's where the plushie came in. We have a Lego set, right? Where it's like, let's take one thing off of her plate. When she travels for work, she doesn't have to think about like, I got to stop at the airport and I got to find something for my kids, right? So it's like just knowing your audience really well, and like what would they
Yeah.
appreciate? What would they love? What would they find funny? What would they find interesting, different, intriguing? And so that's kind of how we've built up the brand and the business this year. We had no demand gen function this year, and we're still able to hit our kind of pipeline and revenue goals for our first year in business. So yeah, it's exciting to see that like you can grow a business on brand alone and very little kind of demand gen activity. That doesn't work forever. And so we're changing that next year. We have a demand gen marketer joining us in January so that we can start to really
So
scale all
move
of this up at some
move
pace.
move to the next level, having built the foundations. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great. Some great examples there. What about where some of that sort of merch or swag has not worked well? Have you got examples of where it just hasn't resonated, or what, maybe from past roles? Or I've definitely got one, but it'd be interested to know from you if there are sort of examples of where it was just didn't land.
Yeah. I mean, I think we all have that drawer of t-shirts or that pile that we need to get to the donation bin, right, of t-shirts. I know that I have a couple of kind of swag t-shirts in there. Um, how many pens can you give away? Right. I mean, I think there's the things that everyone does. And then I think if you take it a step further and really understand like what's different, what would be appreciated or make someone smile, like I think that's where we try to go because um look, the bar is low with swag. Like, you don't have to try hard for it to feel very different, and feel ownable. I think that's a really interesting thing too. Like, how can it feel like something that only your brand could give away? That's a
Yeah.
really nice kind of lens to look at it through.
And
What are some of
no,
your bad examples?
well, I remember back in my corporate life, um, I was selling software, and the marketing team sent little corgi double decker buses to everyone, just little toys with our logo on the side. And I mean, there was no story behind it at
Sure.
all. It was just, just a thing. And then I was selling another software for the same company, and it was about online resources. So we sent everyone a little book, and they were like, "Well, you're trying to sell me online resources, yet you're cutting trees down, creating this." It was like, we had some sort of terrible
Right.
follow-up conversations. But what I love about the stories you've shared there, Jess, is a lot of thought has been put into it, but it's also really tailored to your audience. So you're thinking about 67%, 70% of your audience are women. Therefore, how can we help them make life a bit easier when they've been at shows, for example? So you might not necessarily realize that thought's gone in, but it has, which is great.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the next step for our ghosty, we're gonna do some owned events next year, and we'd love to do some sort of like, I don't know if they've Build-A-Bear across the pond, but Build-A-Bear is like this little toy shop here in the US where you go in and you build a bear, like a teddy
Okay.
bear, and then you get to pick its clothes. And so we'd love to do something like that where it's like each stop on the owned event kind of tour has its
Yeah, yeah,
own
yeah.
little outfit for the ghost or something, right? Like, I think that little things like that where it's like, how okay, we created this ghosty, like, now how can we build upon it, and maybe even make something that would be in demand, right? Like, or exclusive to something. So,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
gotta collect them all kind of thing.
Yeah, and you're creating, that's all brand, but it's loyalty and it's creating, step by step in the journey, isn't it? So that's great. And so let's sort of bring ourselves back to content then. And you mentioned at the top of the recording that you believe content is, well, everything is about content, which I get. You feel like great content is becoming more and more important in the world of marketing, and I guess that's linked in some ways to the way ChatGPT goes off and finds answers. Would I be correct in thinking that?
Yeah, absolutely.
So suggest let's just go back, perhaps to where we started at the top of the call, and you were talking about Vector and Vector's business. So you've got anonymous people coming onto site, but you're able to share who they are with a customer if you use Vector. Is that correct?
Exactly. So you're able to see, we de-anonymize about 30% of your website traffic.
Right. Wow.
Yeah, so we're able
I
to
mean,
see,
that sounds amazing to me. I don't know if and is are there international challenges with this? Because we're here. I'm here in the UK, and sadly, I don't think that's possible. Which is the sort of mecca for. Wouldn't it be amazing to know all of those people that are searching but don't
right?
say anything? So tell us what it's like in the wonderful world of the US then. So
Right, exactly. Well, yes, it is very much confined to the US. We are working on ways to expand that, right? We're able to kind of understand who actually has filled out a farm in the past that we might be able to resurface for you outside of the US. But within the US, we are able to de anonymize about 30% of your website traffic. And that includes people who are clicking your ads but not converting, right? Which is a pretty large
right,
group of folks, right? 98% of ad clicks don't convert. So that's really exciting as well. And then what you're able to do is then segment those people into, kind of the appropriate groups, and then put ads in front of them that make sense for whatever context they already have about you. So for instance, if you have a whole group of people that are visiting certain playbooks, or blogs that are tagged in a certain way, or they've hit your pricing page, right? Like, you're able to then kind of take that information and put the right message in front of them with an ad that kind of like mirrors their experience they've already had, their knowledge of you. The other area that we're able to do that in is offsite research. So we're able to kind of understand through the magic of AI. Someone has been researching about topics that are relevant to you or competitors, and then you could, for instance, do a competitor takeout ad in front of those folks who've been researching your
Oh, wow.
competitors, or put a piece of content in front of them about that topic they've been researching, right? So it just personalizes the experience in a way that kind of creates that perfect timing effect of, when you
Yeah.
buy a new car and then you start to see that car everywhere. It's very much like that, right? Where it's like,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
I've actually been looking for information about this. And so, yeah, it's something that our customers have seen an incredible success with, specifically in terms of like cost per lead getting driven down. We actually have a really interesting metric. I believe we're the only ones to service this cost per ICP click. So you can
Wow.
understand, cost per click is great, but if every single click is garbage, what does it matter?
Yeah.
Now you can understand what it actually costs you to get your ICP to click an ad. So some really interesting information, reporting surfaces when you start to understand who is actually behind all of that engagement.
Yeah, that sounds amazing, and we'll just have to wait for our GDPR laws to loosen up a bit before we get that, unfortunately. But to any listeners in the US, then good luck and enjoy, because what a great thing. Do you help your customers think about how they then interact with those people? So, because it can sound a bit stalker-like, can't it? So, if you've
Absolutely.
do you sort of get them asking you for ways that they should approach? How does that work?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. So, yeah, our like top best practice is not to go out and be like, "We saw you on our site," right? In fact,
You were on our
we
site 5 seconds ago.
yeah, yeah, you looked at this page and this page. And I think the other kind of the other side of the coin to this is we make it pretty difficult for you to do kind of the sales kind of outbound motion with this information, simply because we found it's, email's really saturated. It's really difficult to kind of get someone engaged in that way. Where we found our customers really excel is through kind of this ads motion. So
Right.
that is kind of the path of least resistance inside of the product. But yeah, the idea is like, we don't want you to know, honestly, that like, hey, we just saw you on our site. That always feels a little weird. The one group who doesn't feel weird about that is marketers, to
Yes.
be quite honest.
Yeah.
Like I think we all as marketers assume that technology is available to us and that we're already being tracked. Where you really don't want to do it is with like IT and security and cyber and all of that, because they're like, wait a second, what?
You're doing
Right.
what?
So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. But there is obviously kind of that serendipitous approach of like, oh, I know this person just read this blog about advanced ad targeting. Therefore, I'm going to put a resource in front of them about, advanced ad targeting strategies. And that just feels like a really nice experience, right? Of like, hey, my phone must have heard me talking about XYZ and now that's serving me ads. It feels like a very seamless experience to people.
Yeah, absolutely. And you talked earlier just about how your CEO and yourself have really committed to the podcasts, and I here as host of the Insiders are committed to our podcast. But do you think that sort of weighs in pretty heavily in terms of the success of that sort of content motion, that everyone sees the commitment from the C level to building the brand and to building the content?
Yeah, I think especially because we market to marketers, it felt really important to show just how invested our CEO Josh is in marketing. Um, People get very excited about our marketing, what our team is doing, and part of it is because they see that we have a CEO who gets brand, who gets marketing, who understands the importance of the different disciplines, who sits with me at the table and supports my work and supports it with dollars and time and accessibility to him. So yeah, it's really important. I think we would come off as a product a bit hypocritical if our founder wasn't willing to kind of put skin in the game in terms of our own marketing. So yeah, I think it's so important. And I think kind of our relationship and our dynamic has become part of the brand as well at this point, where, the podcast is kind of leaked into our interactions on LinkedIn, and
Right.
people will come up to us at events and be like, we watch the show, you guys are great together. Like, we get emails all the time about how, like, we just like to listen to you two banter, like we feel like we're friends, so it does feel really important, specifically given our audience.
Yeah, that's great. And it's I mean, what's interesting, I'm thinking of my experience here with the Insiders, where it's typically me and different guests such as yourself and others, whereas your podcast is the two, almost letting people listen into a regular conversation between the same two people. There's sort of slightly different idea to that, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. The thing you forego with that, right, is you're going to send me some clips from this podcast, and you're going to get that built-in kind of shared distribution.
Yeah.
That's the thing you forego when you simply
Yes.
stick to two people inside your organization. So we work pretty hard at like distribution, repurposing content, making sure that we're, posting about it ourselves. And we both have pretty decent sized audiences. So that helps. But yeah, I think there's pros and cons with every kind of premise, right?
Yeah.
And you have to make up for whatever your premise is not going to deliver for you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so you've spent sort of the time in role from coming out of a content background. So you focus on content, you've done the podcast, you've built content, gifts, the swag, some cool examples. And then you mentioned sort of next it's DemGen. So just as we sort of finish up, just maybe share with us just your plans for next year, and I guess how you're going to build on the foundations that you've started to create.
Absolutely. We've had a ton of success with just kind of brand and organic this year. We did a lot of work even on this. We didn't really even get to talk about this, but on kind of the side of SEO and GEO and programmatic. And we've done some really interesting things there just in terms of like building building up kind of catalogs of organic content that draw people in. We programmatic, for example, will take kind of a single topic that we can kind of make interchangeable, and we'll use AI to kind of spin up a bunch of articles. So for example,
Okay.
can you identify website visitors with insert tool name here, right? And so we can do that 20 times with HubSpot, with 6sense, with Demandbase, and we can publish all of those articles at once, kind of see what hits, and then we'll take those, two or three that really perform well, and we'll flush those out. And that's the information that I want to take and use to like understand how we're going to build up demand gen next year. Like what did really well organically, and how can we now put some paid support behind that, build campaigns around those things so we can just kind of, scale what's already working. We are bringing on a demand gen marketer next year, which I'm so excited about. And we have some big goals for next year. So I think a lot will be riding on that motion. The other thing I'm really excited about is to fully kind of do this vector on vector showcase. So we'll bring in this demand gen marketer. They'll get up to speed on, the role and kind of the inner workings of the company, but also the product itself and how they, as a demand gen marketer,
Right.
can use vector to build ad audiences for vector. And I think, again, like all of the building in public we've been doing, like that's kind of been a missing piece for us a little bit.
Yeah.
And that I think will be really fun to see play out next year. So it's going to kind of be twofold for us next year, which is we're going to be doing kind of the traditional demand gen activities of, ads and events and kind of all of the capture that comes with that, but then also showing people how we're sipping our own champagne and using vector, building our own case studies, which is really cool.
Yeah, that's great. We're going to do just on that. We came up with the idea the other day, which we're going to launch next year, which is, so I run and host the Insiders podcast, which has industry experts, practitioners coming in and sharing stories. But actually, let's get our SDRs talking about the things that go really well, the things that don't go well, the experiences they've got, etc. And so we're gonna turn that into a series as well, and use that, which I think will be, it sort of lifts the hood in terms of the when you partner with Durham Lane, this is what you get. And I think it's similar to you. It's like build it in public. Everyone wants the curtains to be raised and want to see what's happening,
Yes.
and that gives you integrity as well, I think, doesn't it?
Yes, absolutely. And I think it's kind of a proxy for how the rest of the brand experience will be, right? We're going to sit with you and help you with our support team. The sales process is also going to feel very friendly. Like we just really want to be like that lunch table of cool kids, but that's also approachable. Like you can always come sit with us. And I think that's the feeling we want
Yeah.
people to get for the whole experience.
Amazing. Well, it's been absolutely fantastic hearing your stories, Jess. Thank you. And
Thank you,
I'm
Richard.
gonna be listening out and looking out for content marketeers becoming, moving through and becoming the marketing directors as we move into the future. So, thanks for sharing your stories. Thanks for being with us. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. It's been a blast.
Great. And thanks to everyone that's been listening. As usual, if you've enjoyed us, then please seek us out on your favorite podcast sites such as Spotify, Apple, and all the others. And if you'd like to know more about Durham Lane and see how we're more than just SDR outsourcing, then please check us out at durhamlane.com. We won't be spying on you because we're not allowed to just yet in the UK. But we do love intent. We love signals and, yeah, love to engage. So, Jess, again, thank you. And we'll see you all next time.